Have you ever wished you could be the kind of person nothing could shake? The type who doesn't flinch at criticism, rejection, loss, or betrayal? Have you ever longed for a day when that quiet pain inside would finally stop? When the agony gnawing at you in silence would fade, even though you keep up appearances and pretend everything's fine? Maybe you're just exhausted from trying to keep everyone happy, from holding up this strong image the world expects, when deep down all you've really wanted is a moment's break from the weight of being untouchable. But let me share something with you, something most people are too afraid to say out loud. The more you run from pain, the more it runs your life. Every time you try to numb it, shield yourself, or hide behind emotional armor, you end up becoming a prisoner to everything happening around you. To the words that cut, the actions that let you down, the silence that eats you alive. This doesn't make you weak. It just makes you human. And the truth is, this is the reality for most people. You're not alone. The only difference is, some are just better at faking it. Carl Jung, a towering figure in depth psychology, once said we are not defined by what happens to us, but by what we choose to become. That's where the real power lies. It's not about building walls to keep the world out. It's not about going numb, becoming emotionless, or pretending you don't feel a thing. It's about becoming whole. It's about dragging what's hiding in the shadows into the light and finally facing it. Because real strength isn't the absence of pain. It's knowing exactly who you are, even when you're hurting. If you're still here, it's not by accident. This message is meant for you, the one who's tired of constantly getting hurt by everything and everyone. The one who always feels like they're playing emotional catch-up, like others have some secret power over you that you can't quite name. I want to show you that there's another way. But to get there, you'll have to face some uncomfortable truths. And maybe, just maybe, that pain will finally be what sets you free. So let's begin. You probably think the pain you feel comes from what others have done. Their harsh words, their betrayals, their silence, their absence. But here's the harsh reality. None of that can truly hurt you, unless there's already a wound inside waiting to be hit. The real pain doesn't come from the outside. It comes from what those experiences awaken within you. It's the story you repeat in your mind. It's the old trauma you've never truly processed. It's the emptiness you try to cover up with strength, pride, and the need to seem okay. Jung taught us that the emotional pain we feel in the face of life is simply a reflection of what's still unresolved inside. That's why some people go through hell and keep their clarity, while others break under a single word. It's never just about what happens, it's about where it lands. And now we hit something you might not want to hear. You still suffer this deeply because part of you believes you can control how the world treats you. You're still trying to be enough, good enough, smart enough, strong enough, kind enough, as if doing so will shield you from being hurt. But control? It's a fantasy. And as long as you chase it, you'll stay tense, forever trying to dodge what can't be dodged. Want the pain to stop? Then stop trying to dodge it. What you need isn't more control. You need more clarity. The moment you expect others to change so you can finally feel okay, you hand over your power. You become a prisoner to their actions. Real freedom begins when you realize that nothing outside you has power unless it finds something inside you to latch onto. That's the real battlefield. The unconscious, everything you don't see, don't understand, and haven't mastered will end up mastering you. That's exactly what we'll explore next. Prepare to go deeper because that's where the real change begins. If this is hitting home, subscribe and stay with us. Your support means everything. Now let's talk about the biggest lie you've been sold, that you're in control of your life the moment you wake up. The truth? You're not. Not if you're still operating on autopilot, reacting without knowing why, feeling things without understanding the root, making decisions only to sabotage them later. Jung spelled it out clearly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what's happening. That random anger, the sadness that shows up out of nowhere, the heavy emotional weight that doesn't seem to have a source, none of it is random. These are messages from the parts of you that you've buried, ignored, and pushed aside. Jung called this space the unconscious. Not some fog of forgotten thoughts, but a living system. It holds your memories, your fears, your unmet desires, your unresolved pain. And while you pretend it's not there, it continues to steer your every emotion and decision. Ever wonder why certain words hit you like a punch to the gut, while others shrug it off? It's because those words tap into old wounds that never healed. If they're still hurting, it's because you never faced them. You just swept them under your mental rug. And now you keep stumbling over them. Jung said it clearly, you can't change what you haven't accepted. Judging yourself doesn't fix anything. Repressing doesn't set you free. It makes things worse. The unconscious doesn't vanish just because you ignore it. It just finds new ways to make itself known. Toxic relationships that repeat themselves. Self-sabotage you can't seem to escape. Anxiety and fear creeping in just when life seems fine. That's not misfortune. It's your soul trying to wake you up, and you're still asleep. Want to stop getting hurt? Then stop running from what lives inside you. Because as long as you stay blind to your unconscious, your emotions will own you. The more you guard yourself from external pain, the more you expose yourself to internal suffering. But there is a way out, and it doesn't lie in defense, it lies in understanding. Becoming emotionally untouchable isn't about resistance, it's about radical self-awareness. So what does it really mean to be unshaken? Why does this strength not come from armor, but from acceptance? Let's go further. Most people think the only way to avoid pain is by shutting down. So they build walls, wear masks, craft emotional armor, and act like nothing touches them. They say, I don't care anymore, or nothing gets to me. But deep down, they're still bleeding, still breaking. Because the issue was never about feeling too much, it's about not understanding what you feel, or why you feel it. And that happens when you don't know yourself. Jung said it best, know all the theories, master all the techniques, but when touching a human soul, be just another human soul. And the soul you've been hiding behind your strength, your control, your silence, it's crying out to be seen. Emotional strength has nothing to do with coldness. It's not about dodging pain, escaping conflict, or pretending you're fine. It's about embracing every part of yourself, dragging your hidden pain into the open, accepting it. You don't become unshakable by blocking the world out. You get there when you realize nothing outside can break what you've already healed inside. When your shadows, fears, flaws, and insecurities are no longer threats, but parts of you you've made peace with, you stop reacting. You start choosing. That's real freedom. Jung called it individuation, the path to becoming your true self, not the version others want, not the one you created just to be accepted, but the real you, the one born at the crossroads of light and darkness, ego and unconscious. And it's not about becoming perfect. Jung said it's about becoming whole. You don't need to be better. You just need to be complete. And here's the secret no one told you. The more you run from pain, the more tightly it grabs you. The harder you try not to feel, the more fragile you become. But when you finally face your wounds, when you accept who you are, every noble and ugly, proud and shameful part, nothing out there can take you down. Still, this road requires courage. Courage to look inward. Courage to drop the act. Courage to feel. Because hidden inside the pain is the key that can unlock who you were always meant to be. And that's what we'll explore next, how suffering, far from being your enemy, can become the doorway to your true strength. Let's go deeper now, and this time, let's go without fear. From a young age, you were taught to hate pain, told that suffering was weakness, that tears were a waste of time, that feeling too deeply made you soft. So you started running, dodging, denying. But the more you avoided pain, the more it chased you. And the worst part, it doesn't go away. It just shapeshifts into anxiety, rage, numbness, apathy, even urges to destroy yourself. Pain that gets ignored doesn't vanish, it burrows in. It digs deep, carving unseen tunnels inside you, until one day, everything collapses from within. Jung saw pain differently. To him, suffering wasn't a curse, it was a signal, a call from the soul, the unconscious trying to get your attention. He said, depression is like a woman in black. If she shows up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, offer her tea, and listen to what she's trying to say. But you haven't been listening. You keep quiet. You stay distracted. You fill your schedule, numb yourself, stay busy, anything to avoid looking directly at what actually matters. But what if that pain you're running from is trying to show you something essential? The truth is, suffering cuts so deeply because you're still fighting against yourself. Inside you, there's a split. One part wants to grow, to evolve, and another clings to what's familiar, to what's safe. There's something within you screaming for change, but your ego, used to calling the shots, keeps trying to suppress it. That's where pain begins, in the tug of war between who you are and who you are meant to become. And make no mistake, transformation is uncomfortable. Growth is painful. Letting go of old beliefs, walking away from toxic attachments, allowing the outdated versions of yourself to die, none of that comes easy. It's a kind of inner death, a grieving process, but it's within that space of collapse that rebirth becomes possible. When your foundations fall apart, when your illusions dissolve, when pain strips away the armor you've been wearing, what's left is something real, someone real. And it's there, in the raw truth of your own vulnerability, that suffering becomes sacred. Because it finally brings you face to face with the only one who can truly free you, yourself. Jung understood this deeply. To him, suffering wasn't some flaw in the system. It was the system. It wasn't the end of your path. It was the start of the journey toward becoming whole. The problem is, most people never make it past the first part. They hit the pain and they run. They distract themselves, they numb out, they retreat to the surface. But you didn't. You're still here. And that means you're ready to cross the threshold. In the next part, we'll uncover what that crossing really looks like. Because the path to individuation, the path that liberates you, is not easy, but it's everything. We're diving deeper now. And the truth is, very few ever even begin this path. Fewer still finish it. Because this journey doesn't promise comfort. It doesn't offer guarantees. It won't protect your ego. It will dismantle it. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming your truest self. But that begins with unlearning who you think you are. And that's more painful than any rejection the world can throw at you. Because you start to see just how much of your identity was constructed. You begin to realize that the person you've been playing, through achievements, through trauma, through the image you built to be admired or accepted, was only a survival mechanism. But surviving isn't the same as living. And individuation calls you into something more, something real. It's the moment when the unconscious rises up and starts pushing everything you buried to the surface. The illusions, the distortions, the shadows you refuse to look at. And to go forward, you have to let go of the persona, the mask. Jung wrote that it's this internal clarity, this sober awareness of your own darkness, that gives you a kind of strength no one can touch. A strength that doesn't depend on applause or validation, a strength that doesn't need control to feel safe. You no longer need to be liked by everyone. You no longer need to prove yourself in every conversation. You no longer need to fake strength because you found something real inside. And once it's real, no one can take it from you. True emotional armor isn't something you wear. It's something you become. It's a solid center that doesn't shake, even when everything around you is falling apart. You'll still feel pain, but it won't break you. You'll still get hurt, but you won't lose yourself because you've stopped reacting. You've stopped clinging. You've stopped floating on the surface and started living from the depths. But depth has its cost, loneliness. Not because you'll be truly alone, but because few people can walk this path with you. Most are still caught in the masks, in the fear of feeling. And as you free yourself, you'll find yourself drifting from them. Not because you reject them, but because you no longer belong where you once hid. This distance isn't pride, it's growth. You don't pull away to feel superior. You pull away because you've outgrown the spaces that once held your pain. And that leads us to the final truth. Consciousness is your shield, because it's not brute strength that protects you. It's clarity. That's what we'll break down in the final part. How consciousness becomes the one thing no one can touch. The one state where nothing, absolutely nothing, has power over you. So let's finish this together. We're almost there. Now that you made it this far, there's something you need to hear loud and clear. Nothing on the outside can ever protect you from suffering. Not until you wake up to what's going on inside. The words will keep cutting. The rejection will still sting. The loss will still ache until you awaken. But awakening isn't some lightning strike. It's a daily decision. It's choosing to look inward, even when it hurts. It's owning every feeling you have without blaming your parents, your partner, your past, or your pain. Jung said it clearly, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. You've spent a lifetime resisting the fear of not being enough, the ache of rejection, the dread of being alone, the desperation of not being seen. And what did you do with all that? You buried it. You silenced yourself. You tried to control everything. You tried to be perfect, tried to be invincible. And where did it bring you? Here, tired, burned out, worn down from battling the world and yourself. But now you see the truth. Real emotional resilience isn't about being harder. It's about being clearer. It's not about building walls. It's about expanding your awareness. Because once you truly understand your patterns, your wounds, your emotional reflexes, the power that other work stabs, once held over you, disappears. You'll still feel, but you won't drown. You'll still hurt, but you won't lose yourself. And that changes everything. What protects you isn't avoiding life, it's diving into it fully. Those who stay on the surface get knocked over by every wave, but those who dive deep, they find silence, stability, power, down where it matters. And that's where you're heading. Because once you begin living from that grounded, integrated space, where shadow and self are no longer enemies, the world can try to shake you, but it won't know where to strike. If this resonated with you, if something inside you shifted, drop a comment below that says, I choose awareness. Let's start something real, a movement of people who are done pretending to be strong and ready to start living in truth. And don't forget, the next video continues this journey. You're not finished yet. Transformation only begins when you keep going. See you there. And still, the journey doesn't end once the fortress is built. It keeps evolving layer by layer as new trials emerge and deeper parts of yourself rise to the surface. In the day-to-day, you might think staying sovereign means locking into a rigid mindset, but real mastery is much more fluid. It's staying grounded while adapting to shifting environments, responding without losing your center. When ambition drives you toward goals that stir up familiar fears, fear of failing, fear of being judged, don't see that anxiety as weakness. Recognize it as the echo of an old story. Use that energy, trace it back to its source, then give it new meaning. Channel it into focused, disciplined action. When you enter negotiations or face competition, and someone tries to shake you with passive-aggressive comments, veiled threats, or subtle disrespect, pause. Don't react. Treat the moment as reconnaissance. Observe what emotional nerve is being touched. Then, instead of shrinking or attacking, respond from calm authority, reinforced by your self-awareness. This transforms every conflict into a moment of growth. Each interaction becomes a chance to test and reinforce the strength of your inner citadel. And you show others your influence doesn't rely on domination. It radiates from composure that can't be rattled. Some will try to provoke you into emotional combat, but you won't take the bait, not unless it serves your long game. You choose when to engage and when to stay still. That restraint is power. In relationships, the same rule applies. With family, with friends, with anyone close, interactions can awaken those old patterns of needing approval or validation. But you don't repress them. You study them. You let those urges become markers, pointing to the places within you that still need integration. When someone you care about pressures you to play a role, to conform to an expectation, pause. Ask yourself what you're afraid of. Maybe it's the fear of disconnection. Maybe it's the fear of being seen as unworthy. Don't judge yourself for feeling it. Just recognize it. Then choose. Do you meet the expectation because it aligns with your values? Or do you respectfully decline to betray your integrity? That conscious decision, made without guilt, is the kind of authenticity that demands respect. People feel it when you're acting from your truth, not from impulse or insecurity. And when criticism comes, and it always does, you're able to separate the useful from the noise. You extract the lesson, if there is one, and leave the rest behind. You stop carrying blame that was never yours. Your discernment becomes power, proof that you're not swayed by shallow opinions. That blend of empathy and healthy detachment makes your relationships deeper, with those who are sincere, and shields you from those who would drain your energy. Professionally, this grounded stance positions you ahead of the curve. While others freeze in doubt or spin in distraction, you move with clarity. When markets crash, when structures collapse, when unexpected losses hit, you don't panic. You observe. You adapt. You treat every failure as feedback, not a verdict on your worth. That mindset is what keeps you agile. You innovate when others retreat. You stand firm when others crumble. And because of that, your reputation grows quietly, powerfully, as someone who doesn't break under pressure. People follow your lead, not out of fear, but because they trust your stability. Even those who compete with you begin to recognize you're not someone they can shake with a smear or a whisper. You can't be baited with mind games. You stand on something deeper. And that creates an invisible pull. Because you want to be about it in team, because you won't tax, you begin to attract opportunities and allies that align with your long-term vision and repel the noise of short-lived temptations. But there's a warning here. Don't mistake sovereignty for isolation. Real integration includes compassion, shaped by wisdom. When you see someone drowning in their own struggle, you don't absorb it or try to save them. But you can offer guidance. You support without losing yourself in their chaos. You know that true strength means giving people space to confront their own shadows, not fixing their wounds for them. Sometimes that means offering silence instead of advice. Trusting that their growth comes not from your solutions, but from their own awakening. That's respect. That's restraint. That's leadership. And when you engage from this space, not out of ego, but out of clarity, you stop trying to persuade people to change. You become the presence that reminds them they can. So you keep refining your habits. You carve out solitude. You reflect on interactions that stirred something unexpected. You journal. You meditate. You trace emotional patterns with curiosity. And even in rest, you stay quietly aware. Like a watchtower at dusk, scanning the horizon, not paranoid, but present. Your security doesn't come from guarantees. It comes from the foundation you've built inside. Remain curious about your inner terrain. Because as you go deeper, new elements emerge. Dreams you'd buried, fears you never named, desires you didn't know you had. Don't fear them, welcome them. They're not signs that you've failed. They're invitations to grow. They're more pieces of the whole you're becoming. Each new discovery expands your self-knowledge and makes you more equipped to handle life's complexity with elegance. And when the world around you begins to fracture, economic crises, social unrest, political games, you don't join the panic. You don't run to patch the crumbling walls. You anchor deeper into yourself. While others scramble for false safety, you invest where it matters. Your inner foundation. You may act, you may intervene, you might try to shape events. But if your efforts fail or circumstances change, your stability stays intact. Loss doesn't destroy you. It teaches you. And because you no longer fear the fallout, you're free to move boldly. You no longer hesitate, you act from purpose, not panic. And that makes you powerful in a way that needs no announcement. Over time, your inner mastery becomes magnetic. You draw in opportunities and people who resonate with your frequency. The right ones start showing up, not by accident, but because you're ready. And when they do, you recognize the moment not as a fluke, but as the fruit of all your unseen labor. But even now, stay humble. Understand this, mastery is never a finish line. The psyche unfolds forever. Even the wisest among us continue to uncover pieces they hadn't seen before. That's the point. It's not about getting there, it's about staying in the dance, between darkness and light, fear and awareness. Each turn deepens your strength. Every layer adds to your calm. So remind yourself often, invulnerability isn't about not feeling, it's about how you respond. You'll still feel pain, but it won't control you. You'll still feel joy, but you won't chase it. You'll experience loss, and you'll let it go with grace. In everything, you choose clarity over chaos. That choice, again and again, is your true weapon. It's your greatest gift, because through it, you break free from everything that used to hold you back. Nothing outside can hurt you anymore, not because the world got gentler, but because you outgrew the hooks it once had in you. This is the real Machiavellian victory. Not domination over others, but sovereignty within yourself. A kind of quiet strength the world cannot touch. So continue forward, clear-eyed and steady, vigilant but at peace. Because in that balance lies the power that makes you, in every way that counts, untouchable.